My name is Pamela J. Schaefer. I'm 27 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I was in a committed relationship with a man who had apparently been treating me like a temporary arrangement the entire time. His name was Logan. We had been together for a year and a half, 18 months, long enough that he had a drawer at my place, a favorite mug in my kitchen, and opinions about which neighborhoods we should target when we finally moved in together. We met through mutual friends at a rooftop bar in downtown Seattle, the kind of place with overpriced cocktails and heat lamps that never quite do the job. We hit it off over terrible karaoke and a shared hatred of cilantro, which felt absurdly intimate at the time. Within 2 months, he had left a toothbrush at my apartment. 6 months in, he had a drawer. A year in, we were walking through apartment listings together, talking about natural light, second bedrooms, and whether we were dog people yet or just like the idea of being dog people next spring. I thought we were building something. Not flashy, not dramatic, just real. The kind of relationship that settles into your life so naturally you stop questioning its shape. I met his family several times. Holidays, birthdays, Sunday dinners. His mother hugged me like I already belonged. His father talked to me about city politics and contractors. His younger brother, Bennett, was quieter, more observant, always half distracted by architecture school, and whatever impossible deadline was eating his life that week. I never thought twice about any of it. Why would I? I thought I was someone's girlfriend. I thought I knew the role I occupied. Last Tuesday changed that. We were in bed around 10 at night, the most ordinary kind of weekday intimacy there is. 2 people half propped against pillows, phones in hand, blue light washing over the room. I was reading an article about new AI regulations. Logan was beside me, swiping through something with that familiar left-right motion people can identify. In their sleep now. I glanced over without thinking, and there it was. A dating app. Bright profile cards, the little heart and X, a woman smiling at him from the screen while his thumb hovered, with the casual concentration of someone choosing takeout. I felt my stomach drop so fast it was almost physical. Are you serious right now? I asked. I was trying to sound calm. I failed. He did not even flinch. He just shrugged, like I had commented on the weather. What? What do you mean, what? Logan, why are you still on dating apps? That was when he turned toward me and said the sentence that split the relationship cleanly in two. Deleting dating apps is something people do when a relationship is actually serious and ours isn't. For a second, I genuinely thought I had misheard him. Ours isn't serious. He sat up a little, tucking one arm behind his head, already settling into the pose he uses when he thinks he is about to explain something obvious to someone slower than him. Pamela, we're having fun. I care about you, obviously, but I'm 25. I'm not trying to shut every door in my life yet. I want to keep my prospects open, see what else is out there. You should do the same, honestly. If it bothers you that much, date other people too. I won't be upset. I stared at him for a long time. We've been together for 18 months. Yeah, we've met each other's families. We spent Thanksgiving with your parents. We've talked about moving in together, about getting a dog. He smiled then. Not warmly, patiently, the way people smile when they think they are being mature and enlightened while saying something cruel. That doesn't mean we're locked in for life. You're taking this way too seriously. Too seriously. The phrase hit me almost harder than the app itself. Logan, I said, we had a conversation at 3 months about being exclusive. You asked me to be your girlfriend. Girlfriend, he said lightly. Not wife, not life partner. There's a difference. I think what shocked me most was not the selfishness. It was the ease, the complete absence of shame. He was not confessing anything. He was correcting what he apparently believed was my misunderstanding. Like the last year and a half had only ever meant what he privately decided it meant, and I had been naive enough to live inside a different version of the same relationship. I could feel something in me going strangely flat, not healed, not calm, just cold enough to survive the moment. All right, I said finally. That was all. He looked relieved, actually relieved, like I had finally stopped making his life complicated by insisting on ordinary human standards. Good, he said. I'm glad we're on the same page. This is so much healthier than those weird possessive couples. Then no more than 20 minutes later, he fell asleep. Just like that. Curled onto his side, breathing deeply, as if we had discussed takeout preferences instead of the fact that he had just informed me I was basically an option with good attendance. I stayed awake until 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling. Every moment of the last 18 months started replaying with new lighting. Things I had dismissed. hesitations I had explained away, the way he sometimes went distant after especially intimate weekends, the way he liked introducing me to people when it made him look stable, but always seemed slightly allergic to language that implied permanence. I kept searching backward through memory, the way you search through a dark room after a power outage, hands out, trying to understand the exact shape of what you just lost. The next morning, he left for work around 8:30 with a cheerful, "Have a good day," as if we had discussed brunch plans. I sat on my couch for almost an hour after the door shut, doing nothing. Then I picked up my phone and re-downloaded every app I had deleted when we got together. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all of them. Not because I was excited, not because I was truly ready. I was angry, humiliated, and acting on instinct more than desire. But if Logan wanted an open arrangement retroactively assigned to my life, then I was not going to be the only one sitting around waiting to be replaced while pretending I was lucky to still be in the running. I updated my profiles with newer photos, a hiking picture from last month, one from a friend's engagement party. I wrote a bio that sounded more like me than I expected. Then I started swiping. Within an hour, I had several matches. I barely looked at most of them. Then one profile appeared and the blood drained from my face. Bennett, Logan's younger brother, same last name, same dark hair, same eyes, only softer somehow. His profile had photos from a trip to Portugal. One of him smiling in front of bright tiled walls, another at his drafting table surrounded by sketches and tracing paper. I stared at the screen long enough that it dimmed. Before I could decide whether to exit the app, unmatch, or throw my phone across the room, a message came through. Well, this is awkward. I sat there frozen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then another message arrived. Or maybe it isn't. I should have unmatched. Instead, I typed back. Definitely awkward. There was a pause. Then Bennett replied. Should I ask why my brother's girlfriend is on here? I looked at the words for a long time before answering. Ex-girlfriend, apparently. Found out last night we were never actually serious. News to me after 18 months. His response came almost immediately. Oh no, he gave you the keeping options open speech, didn't he? I felt my whole body go still again. You've heard it before? I wrote. Yes, he replied. With his last girlfriend too, and the one before that. I love my brother, but he treats relationships like rental cars. Useful while he needs them. Return the second something shinier catches his attention. That should have made me close the app. Instead, I kept typing. What started as mutual shock turned into conversation faster than it should have. At first, Bennett and I were just comparing damage. He told me Logan had used almost the exact same language before. Different girl, same speech, same smug little philosophy about freedom and options, and not wanting to be boxed in. The only thing that changed, according to Bennett, was the woman on the receiving end of it. One ex got the speech after 11 months, another after nearly a year. Logan liked relationships right up until the moment they asked him to define them in a way that cost him access to the rest of the world. I sat on my couch staring at those messages and felt something ugly in me settle into clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. Bennett wrote, I'm really sorry. You seemed like one of the good ones. That line got under my skin more than I expected. Maybe because it sounded so simple. No performance, no defensive philosophy about open-mindedness or being modern or healthy. Just recognition that something unfair had happened and that I had not deserved it. We kept messaging. At first, I told myself it was because I wanted information. Context. Some broader map of the emotional terrain I had apparently been wandering blind for a year and a half. But somewhere between joking about Logan's commitment issues and talking about Bennett's thesis project on affordable housing, the conversation became something else. Easier. Realer. He told me about his cat, Frank, named after Frank Lloyd Wright, with the kind of self-aware embarrassment that made me laugh for the first time in 24 hours. He sent me a photo of the cat sprawled across tracing paper like he paid rent there. I told him about the healthcare startup I worked for, about debugging code that breaks in ways so specific it starts to feel personal. He said architecture students and software developers were basically the same species, just with different caffeine sources. By the time he suggested coffee on Friday, I knew I should say no. Not because I thought there was anything malicious in it, there wasn't, but because it was complicated in the kind of way that tends to leave wreckage if you move too quickly. He was my boyfriend's brother, or ex-boyfriend's brother. Even thinking that phrase made my body tense. Still, I said yes. Friday afternoon, I met him at a little cafe downtown with mismatched chairs, local art on the walls, and the sort of menu that made ordinary coffee sound like a personality trait. I got there first and spent 10 minutes pretending to read emails while actually checking the door every time it opened. When he walked in, I felt that strange dislocation you feel when someone is both familiar and entirely new in a different setting. Same dark hair as Logan, same sharp cheekbones, but everything about Bennett felt softer around the edges, less rehearsed, less interested in winning the room. He smiled when he saw me, a little awkwardly, like he knew exactly how bizarre this looked, and had decided honesty was the only way through it. "I almost wore a disguise," he said as he sat down. I laughed despite myself. A fake mustache would have helped. It was between that and witness protection. That was how it started. Not with drama, not with some reckless spark, just relief. We talked for 3.5 hours, long enough for the cafe to shift from mid-afternoon quiet into the slow hum of evening. He showed me sketches from his thesis project, modular housing units designed to be assembled quickly for unhoused populations. Clean lines, practical beauty. I could see the kind of mind behind them. Generous, precise, interested in people more than applause. I told him more than I expected to about the last 1.5 years with Logan, how I had really believed we were building towards something stable, how humiliating it felt to realize I had apparently been the only person in the relationship using words like future and meaning them. Bennett listened in a way Logan never really had, not waiting to reply, not watching for the moment to turn the conversation back toward himself, just listening. Then he said, stirring foam absent-mindedly into his second latte, "Can I be honest?" "Please." "I always thought you were too good for him." I looked up. He held my gaze. "I love my brother, I do, but Logan wants everything available to him all the time. Security and excitement, commitment and freedom. He wants someone stable to come home to, and the fantasy that something better is still out there if he gets bored." That is uncomfortably accurate. I know. There was no delight in it. No sibling rivalry weaponized for my benefit, just tired truth. When we finally left the cafe, I felt lighter than I had since Tuesday night. Not healed, definitely not over anything, but lighter. As if being in the presence of someone who spoke plainly had reminded my nervous system it didn't need to brace against every sentence. We exchanged real numbers before we parted, not just app messages, and agreed to see each other again. That Sunday was Logan's family's monthly dinner. I had forgotten about it completely until he texted me Saturday afternoon. "You're still coming tomorrow, right? Mom's making the lasagna, the good one." I stared at the message for a long time. No acknowledgement of Tuesday. No apology, no clarification, just an invitation folded around normalcy as if he could restore the relationship by skipping directly to routine and hoping I would follow. I should have declined. I should have said I was busy, or tired, or simply no, because no would have been enough. But something in me had shifted, and with that shift came a different kind of curiosity. I wanted to see how he behaved in front of the same family he had used to make us look serious. I wanted to watch him perform commitment after telling me in bed that ours wasn't real. And if I'm honest, some smaller, meaner part of me wanted to see Bennett again too, even though I knew exactly how dangerous that made the evening. So I went. Their parents lived in a craftsman house in Ballard, all rose bushes out front and warm yellow light in the windows. When I knocked, Logan opened the door and kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," he said, loud enough for his mother to hear from the kitchen. It was such a seamless performance, it almost impressed me. Then I stepped inside and saw Bennett in the living room. Our eyes met for 1 second. Nothing visible passed between us. No smile, no look too long to explain. But the air changed anyway. Some silent recognition, some awareness that the room now held a truth only 2 people at the dinner table fully understood. And from that moment on, the whole evening felt like a fuse already burning. Dinner started the way family dinners always do when the people at the table are performing a version of themselves they want preserved. Logan's mother, Patricia, moved between the stove and the table, fussing over whether the lasagna was too dry, whether we had enough bread, whether anyone needed more water. His father, Tom, settled into his usual rhythm of telling stories halfway through the salad course, mostly about contractors, old electrical jobs, and how nobody under 40 knew how to return a phone call anymore. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily through all of it, filling the quiet spaces with a sound that felt almost too loud because I could not stop waiting for something to break. Logan played the perfect boyfriend. That was the strangest part. He touched the small of my back when we walked into the dining room. He asked if I wanted more wine. He leaned toward me when he spoke, smiled at me across the table, laughed at the right moments, The same easy, affectionate man his family had apparently been watching me date for a year and a half. If Tuesday night had not happened, I might have thought I was losing my mind. But Tuesday had happened. And Bennett was sitting across from me, quiet, attentive, carrying the same knowledge in his face even when he said nothing. Halfway through dinner, Patricia looked at me warmly over the edge of her glass and said, "So, have you two thought any more about moving in together? Logan mentioned last month that you were looking at places in Capitol Hill." There it was. The future. The one Logan had been happy to parade in front of his family while privately insisting we were casual. He jumped in before I could even breathe. "We're still figuring out timing, Mom. No rush, right, honey? We want to find the right place." Honey. I nearly laughed. Before I could answer, Bennett set down his fork and said very calmly, "Actually, Mom, I don't think they're quite at that stage." The whole table shifted, not visibly at first. Just that tiny internal pause people have when they sense tone changing before they understand why. Logan looked at him sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" Bennett didn't raise his voice. He didn't smirk. That was what made it hit harder. He sounded almost bored with the truth, like he was tired of holding it politely in his mouth. "It means," he said, "that according to you, things are meant to stay casual and low pressure. Isn't that what you told Pamela? That you like to keep your options open and see what else is out there?" The table went still. Not awkward still. Dead still. The kind where even silverware seems too loud. Patricia blinked. Tom frowned. Logan's face changed so fast it almost looked painful. "That is not what I said," he snapped. Bennett lifted one shoulder. "It is, actually. Or at least it's what Pamela says you told her Tuesday night while swiping on dating apps in bed beside her." His mother's fork slipped against her plate with a sharp little clatter. Tom looked between the two of them, confused and already irritated. Dating apps? Logan turned to me then, his expression caught somewhere between anger and fear. Pamela. There was accusation in the way he said my name. Not surprise. Accusation, like I had violated some private agreement by allowing the truth to exist in a room that mattered to him. I set my napkin down. I could have lied then. I could have softened it, redirected, made it vague enough to save face. A week earlier I might have, but I was so tired of being the one person at the table expected to absorb the discomfort so everyone else could preserve a fantasy. So I looked at Patricia first, then Tom, and said, "On Tuesday, I saw Logan actively using a dating app while we were in bed together. When I asked why, he told me deleting them is something people do when a relationship is actually serious, and according to him, ours isn't." Patricia stared at her son like she had forgotten how his face worked. Tom's brows pulled together hard. "Is that true?" Logan laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Oh, come on, this is being twisted." "Is it?" Bennett asked. Logan swung toward him. "Why are you doing this?" And that was the wrong question. Not because it wasn't emotional, because it revealed exactly where his mind still was. Not on what he had done, on who had exposed him. Patricia looked at me again, almost pleading now. "Pamela, sweetheart, what exactly did he say?" I kept my eyes on Logan. He said we'd been having fun, that he cared about me, but that he wasn't ready to close off all his options, that I should see other people too, if it bothered me. "That's not," Logan started. I cut him off for the first time in our entire relationship. "You also said you never claimed we were serious." Tom leaned back in his chair slowly, like his body needed a second longer than his mind to catch up. "After a year and a half?" Logan ran a hand through his hair. "Dad, it's not like that. We just have different definitions of commitment." Bennett gave a quiet, almost disbelieving exhale. "That line again." Patricia turned to him. "Again?" There it was, the family beginning to understand that they were not watching a misunderstanding. They were watching a pattern. Before Bennett could answer, Logan snapped, "Stay out of it." "No," Bennett said, still calm, "I'm done staying out of it." Then he looked at his mother and added, "Pamela matched with me on the app Thursday morning. That's how I know his profile is still active." The room detonated. Patricia's face went white, then red. Tom's voice rose instantly, demanding to know whether Logan had actually been sleeping around, whether he was serious. What exactly he thought he was doing, dragging a woman through 18 months of holidays and future talk while calling it casual and private. Logan started talking over both of them, fast, defensive, trying to push blame in too many directions at once. Bennett stayed seated, strangely steady inside the chaos, like he had expected every second of it. And me, I sat there feeling almost detached. Not because I didn't care, because I had cared so much for so long. And this was the moment all that emotional confusion finally collapsed into something simple. Logan was not misunderstood. He was exposed. There is a difference. Then he turned back to me, eyes bright with fury and humiliation. Are you seriously just going to sit there and let him do this? I met his gaze. There is no him doing this, I said. There's just you hearing your own words in the wrong room. His face crumpled for half a second. Then came the anger. So that's it? You're siding with him now? I almost smiled at the absurdity. There is no us to side against, Logan. You made that very clear on Tuesday. He stood so quickly his chair scraped hard against the floor. Patricia flinched. Tom stood too, not aggressively, but in the stunned reflex of a father realizing his son was becoming someone he didn't know how to defend. Logan looked at Bennett with naked hatred. You're unbelievable. Bennett didn't move. No, I'm just not lying for you anymore. Then Logan looked at me one last time, eyes wet now, anger fraying into something messier and more frightened. You really let her destroy this, he said to Bennett, then to me. And you. You couldn't wait to make me the villain. I stood then, not because I wanted the drama, but because I wanted to leave before the scene turned into one more thing he could rewrite later. You did not need help becoming the villain, I said quietly. You handled that yourself. He grabbed his keys, shoved his chair aside, and stormed out, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the picture frames in the hallway. The silence after that felt enormous. No one moved for a few seconds. Outside, his car engine turned over, revved too hard, and disappeared down the street. Patricia was the first to speak. She looked at me with something close to heartbreak in her face and reached across the table to touch my hand. Pamela, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Tom shook his head slowly, staring at the empty doorway like the shape of his disappointment had become visible there. Bennett said nothing. He didn't need to. I sat in that silence, in the wreckage of 18 months, and felt something strange. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just relief. Because for the first time since Tuesday night, I was no longer the only person in the room living in reality. Logan didn't contact me for 4 days after that dinner. No calls, no texts, no late-night apologies wrapped in self-pity. Nothing. Just silence. And honestly, the silence felt stranger than the chaos had. For the first 24 hours, I kept expecting my phone to light up with some version of the same message he had always used whenever he thought he could talk his way out of accountability. Something polished. Something emotional enough to make me doubt my own anger. But nothing came. Then Thursday night, at almost 11, my phone started vibrating so hard across the coffee table it nearly knocked itself to the floor. 17 missed calls in under half an hour. Then the text started. We need to talk. You owe me a conversation. I can't believe you did that to me. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. How could you let Bennett do that? Pamela, answer me. I read all of them once, then set the phone down. What struck me most was not the anger. It was the language. Still no real apology. Still no acknowledgement of what he had actually done. Just outrage that the truth had been spoken in a room where he could not control the outcome. I responded once. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped protecting it. Then I muted the thread. The next morning at 7:30, my apartment buzzer started going off in frantic bursts. I already knew it was him. I tried ignoring it for almost a minute, but he kept leaning on it, long enough that I pictured my neighbors cursing my name through their walls. So I pulled on a sweatshirt, walked to the door, and opened it. Logan pushed past me before I could decide whether to let him in. He looked wrecked, hair unwashed, eyes bloodshot, same sweatshirt he'd worn at dinner. He smelled faintly like stale coffee and whatever panic becomes after you've been wearing it for 4 days. You turned my whole family against me, he said immediately, pacing into the living room like he had inherited the right to occupy space there. I shut the door slowly. No, I didn't. He spun toward me. You sat there and let Bennett make me look like some liar. You are a liar. He stared at me, chest rising too fast. And now you're dating my brother. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. The one thing that actually wounded him was not losing me. It was losing the position of control he assumed he still had. We had coffee, I said. 1 coffee. With Bennett. Yes. That's sick. I folded my arms. You told me to date other people. You said it was healthy. You said I should keep my options open. Not him. There it was. Not I love you. Not I was wrong. Not I hurt you. Just a frantic, ego-wounded insistence that if I was going to move on, it should happen in a way that still protected his comfort. Anyone but him, he said again, like repetition might turn entitlement into logic. Do you understand how that makes me look? I looked at him for a long second. Not everything is about how you look. That hit him. He dragged both hands through his hair and started pacing again. This is revenge, isn't it? You're doing this to punish me because I was honest. Honest? The word almost made me angry enough to smile. You weren't honest, I said. You were honest by accident because I caught you. He stopped moving. For 1 second, the room went completely still. Then he started crying. Real tears. Sudden, messy, theatrical enough that 6 months earlier, I probably would have rushed toward him before my brain caught up. That was the old pattern. Logan breaks something, Logan cries. I become the one comforting the person who injured me. This time I stayed exactly where I was. I didn't mean it, he said, voice cracking. When I said we weren't serious, I was scared. I was being stupid. I love you, Pamela. I do. I just panicked. No, I said quietly. You loved having me. He flinched. You loved having someone steady, someone loyal, someone who made your life feel anchored while you kept shopping around for something that might excite you more. That's not the same as loving me. He shook his head hard, tears sliding down his face. That's not fair. It's exact. He took a step toward me. We can fix this. I'll delete everything right now. Every app. I'll do therapy. I'll tell my family I was wrong. I'll do whatever you want. And that was when I knew, with complete certainty, that there was no going back. Because he still thought this was about the apps, as if the betrayal were the software and not the worldview behind it. I don't want you to delete them for me, I said. I want you to be honest with yourself about what you actually want, and I want you to leave. He stared at me, searching my face for the hesitation that used to save him. He didn't find it. So the tears dried into anger almost instantly. That shift was so familiar it made me tired instead of hurt. Fine, he snapped. Go ruin your life with Bennett. See how long that lasts. I opened the door. He stood there another second, maybe waiting for me to soften, maybe hoping for one last explosion, dramatic enough to make me the villain in his own memory. Then he grabbed his keys, brushed past me, and left. The door slammed behind him hard enough to rattle the frame. That night, Bennett took me to dinner. A real dinner. Not revenge disguised as romance. Not some dramatic, let's show him performance. Just dinner at a small Italian place in Fremont, where the candles were too short and the waiter kept forgetting to bring water. And somehow it was the easiest I had felt with another person in months. We talked about everything except Logan for the first hour. Architecture school. My work. His thesis. My childhood dog. His cat, Frank, and the fact that Frank apparently hated all men except him and one specific FedEx driver. By the time we finally circled back to the obvious thing between us, it felt less like a scandal and more like truth slowly stepping into the room. This is complicated, I said. He nodded. Yeah, you don't seem scared. I am scared, he said. I'm just also tired of pretending clear things are unclear because other people behave badly. That sentence stayed with me, because that was exactly what the last 18 months with Logan had felt like. A long education in pretending the obvious was somehow open to interpretation. Bennett and I kept seeing each other after that. Not recklessly. Not like people trying to prove a point. Slowly. 2 or 3 times a week. A movie one Friday. Thai takeout on my couch another. A Saturday afternoon helping me repaint my living room. Both of us terrible with rollers and somehow ending up with agreeable gray paint on our arms, our shoes, and one streak across his jaw that made me laugh so hard I had to sit down on the floor. It was easy in a way my relationship with Logan had never been. Bennett answered when he said he would. He communicated directly. He did not make honesty sound like a philosophical burden. He treated the relationship like something you protect while it is growing, not something you keep provisional in case a better offer appears. Logan tried to interfere twice more. The first time he told his parents I had been cheating with Bennett for months, that we were having some secret affair behind his back. Bennett shut that down within an hour, with screenshots, app timestamps, and message dates that proved exactly when we first matched, first texted, and first met for coffee. Patricia was furious. Tom, from what Bennett told me, didn't even bother arguing. He just looked at Logan and said, "Stop digging." The second time, Logan called me drunk at 2 a.m. from a new number. He was slurring, crying again, saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life and begging me to come over so he could explain what he really meant. I hung up before he finished the sentence and blocked that number too. After that, he finally got quiet. It has been 3 months now. Logan moved to Chicago in late November for a new job with some marketing firm, or maybe to escape the fallout, or maybe both. His mother apologized to me again last week at Bennett's thesis presentation, her voice low and sad as if she still couldn't quite believe the kind of son she had raised and the kind of man he had become. I told her the truth. It wasn't her fault. Some lessons people insist on learning the hard way. Bennett and I are taking things slowly, but we are happy, really happy. Not the loud, performative kind of happy that needs witnesses, the quiet kind, the kind that builds. He leaves coffee mugs at my place, forgets hair ties on my bathroom counter. Frank stayed over last weekend and acted like he owned the apartment by morning. It feels like building something real this time, not in speeches or future faking, but brick by brick. I saw Logan's Instagram last week. He is already dating someone new, some consultant he met at a work conference. Matching smiles, matching captions, that same performance of certainty he likes to wear before he has earned it. Good for him. Honestly, I hope he figures out what he wants before he wastes another 1.5 years of someone else's life. As for me, I learned something I should have trusted sooner. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Do not wait around for the second or third demonstration just because you have already invested too much in the version of them you hoped was real. And sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply finding someone who chooses you clearly. Someone who deletes the apps without being asked. Someone who never makes you wonder whether you are real to them.